Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition. His name is Zach. My name is Braden. Welcome in to the program. A lot of stuff for you guys today on the show. Zach, how are we doing this afternoon?
I am doing fantastic.
Oh, fantastic is great. That's a great way to be.
No, it's not great. It's fantastic.
That's just, that's a better word than great. That's true. The Athlon Sports preseason top 25. I also work for Athlon Sports, of course. That preseason top 25 is out. It came out yesterday. The Tennessee Volunteers, are they overhyped? We're going to get into that. Georgia versus Alabama. Can Texas A&M make the playoffs? So a lot of top 25 talk preseason. Never too early, Zach, to start talking about the preseason top 25, as I think that when magazines start coming out, that is the start of football season.
So I noticed this when we were talking about a few of the draft prospects. You still buy magazines?
Well, as an employee of the company,
yes.
No.
Oh,
but
you receive magazines,
right?
You still collect and have magazines.
Oh, I probably got a bunch of them lying around here in the home office. No, I love having the tangible, like being able to take notes and scribble on a player's profile and look at a schedule and X out a schedule. Like I use 2 magazines throughout the course of a college football season, and I think the draft magazine is actually really great one to have because it's great to get to know new players. Not that Titans fans need any of that. So a lot of top 25 stuff. Do you read books on like on a iPad or something?
No, books are different than magazines to me. Magazines, no offense to Athlon or anything. I do read their stuff on the internet. But
what is this
magazines are something that collect. Like
yeah, that's true.
You know, like I have old magazines that we were just moving, and I found like all these old Wizard magazines, which is obviously a Nintendo Power and stuff, comic books and video game magazines. Now I did keep them because I just think it's fun to go back and look at what was being written about. Because at the time there's no superhero movies, but in Wizard magazines they would fantasy cast superhero movies, which was pretty cool to go back and look at some of those.
Listen, I buy the Athlon Sports magazine for the articles, Zach. Okay. I buy it. I buy the Athlon. There's gorgeous art in there, beautiful photos. In fact, it's probably what Athlon is different than every other company in the history of magazines for preseason college football. We actually pride ourselves on the photography. We actually do have the greatest photos, but the articles are pretty good too. So again, the magazines are out, athlonsports.com. You can go to the website and check it out. But we're going to dive into Tennessee's in there. Are they overrated? Can Texas A&M make the playoff? Bama versus Georgia, the best middle class in SEC history, maybe. So we're going to get all of that. We're going to get into all of that today, if I could speak. Obviously, Titans OTA. I had a chance to go to the one day. You're allowed to go to 1 day of practice a week. So we got to see all the players. Well, some of them, Zach, on the field on Tuesday, and we can overreact to all of the things. There's a lot of important information, I think, everybody, that, Zach, you're going to lay out for the folks today that you just need to keep in mind when you're reading and studying OTAs with the Tennessee Titans. So we're going to ground everybody, as we like to do on this show. Before we do any of that, of course,
we're like a lightning rod.
Exactly. We are 4 rubber tires. That is what we are. All right. So before we do any of that, special thanks to our title sponsor, the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com is the website. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. And if you're going to make a big decision about your house, you know the drill. I use them at my family uses them. We've used them to do big projects at our house. If you're going to make a big decision about your house, you might as well have all the information. So just have a conversation with the wonderful and amazing folks at the Kingston Group. Now tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you, and what they should do for this here show right now.
Whatever app you use podcasts, you can find Football and Other F Words that I host with Michael Gillum every week. It is a fantastic, authentic take of 2 guys just sitting around. Basically, what we try to go for is 2 guys sitting around telling you why you're wrong, more than likely. It's working out great.
Like ratings, I'm wrong.
the general you, the royal we or royal you,
right.
And it works out really well. The ratings keep going up. We're an unstoppable force. We got millions and millions of subscribers, soon to be billions. We're gonna be like McDonald's.
Many people are talking about.
Many people are talking about. We're huge. We're global, and that is no joke. We are a global, and we are an award-winning podcast. So, you know,
speaking of
sky's the limit.
Speaking of award-winning, Stoney Keeley chiming in already. Got to have the physical magazine in my hands to read religiously for 3 months and then throw away. Don't throw it away though. Leave it on the coffee table as branding and marketing for Athlon Sports. We do appreciate that. Speaking of award-winning, Broadway Sports Media, of course, is the website, as well as all of the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. We do appreciate all of your support. The Gold Standard Podcast, trying to decipher what the hell's happening with the Nashville Predators. Wes and Tim do a great job on Club and Country covering Nashville SC. There's going to be a fantastic episode of Lamestream Sports this week. Ari Wasserman covers recruiting for The Athletic. And if you want to know about Josh Heupel and recruiting and name, image, and likeness, that is going to be your episode. So make sure you check that out on Friday as well. I think that's everything, Zach. I think that's everything. Can we start talking about...
You want to tell people why we're not in studio? Obviously, the Cast Collective is going through major upgrades, and they say we just be in the fucking way, so they kicked us out. They said, stay home. We're going through some upgrades for the studio, which is great news for us. And then also...
Hang on. The Cast Collective will not cuss at you, though. The Cast Collective will not say...
Well, they may cuss at you, but they're not cussing at me. True. But I'll cuss at you.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
And then on Tuesday, we are going to have a fantasy football centric show. We're going to go through offensive projections for the Tennessee Titans offense. And then we're going to segue into basically, is there anybody you should really draft after Derrick Henry in the first 8 rounds? Probably not. You can maybe make some arguments, but we'll talk about that on Tuesday since Memorial Day is Monday. And
what is the appropriate amount of points to give your fantasy footballers when they catch a pass? It's one of the silliest debates I've ever seen in fantasy football circles. There is an accurate number. There is a right number. You and I actually agree on it, and we'll do that on Tuesday. That is, man, talk about a tease.
That's a tease. Big tease.
Wow. Okay. Titans OTAs. So here's the thing. I was there on Tuesday, Zach. I did not see Derrick Henry. I immediately changed my win-loss record because you know how we sit down and we think that everyone should project every single game for the Tennessee Titans and every other NFL team. I immediately changed it from 11-6 to 9-8, 2 losses fewer for the Tennessee Titans because Derrick Henry did not show up at OTAs on Tuesday of this week. I'm sorry, Zach. They are significantly worse because he did not practice on Tuesday.
Well, for those who may not know, that is obviously sarcasm, but that goes to this topic, vet skipping OTA. Who cares? I mean, is this not the most meaningless topic being generated because certain players missed? So basically, Derrick Henry missed OTAs or was missing whatever he was missing. And everybody said that he's holding out for a new contract and blah, blah, blah. Well, now come Monday and Tuesday, you have like 7 or 8 veterans missing. One of them, Harold Landry, who just got paid. So obviously he must be holding out, right? Because that's what we're now equating veterans who do not need voluntary, who do not need voluntary workouts, not showing up, obviously are holding out for a new contract.
What is it that you think goes through people's minds when they see that type of story and think that it's a thing that they have to talk about? Like, and I'm not talking about media, and I'm talking about everybody. Like,
right.
Honestly, what do you think is going through? Like, what is the logic in your head?
Well, it's like not parking in the lines when you're at the Titan Stadium at the St. Thomas Sports Park. There is no intelligence, no intelligent life found at that point. So,
looking at you, Stillman.
So at some point, that's what I think, shows like what we put on, like the podcast that we do. Any sport needs someone to say, this stuff doesn't really matter. And this is one of those things that doesn't really matter. Are we really concerned that Kevin Byard,
Kevin Byard wasn't there?
Yeah, Kevin Byard wasn't there.
Harold Landry wasn't there.
Yeah, Harold Landry wasn't there. I think Bud Dupree was missing. Danico Autry was missing. Are we all really concerned that they're all holding out, even though Harold Landry just got a contract?
The culture is crumbling, Zach.
That's the big thing, right? The culture is crumbling. There is no leadership. Mike Vrabel's saying one thing, but another thing is happening behind the scenes. Look, I think it was Mickey Ryan today. I saw a really good tweet from Mickey Ryan. No, it was actually Terry McCormick, which makes it, very surprising that the tweet was the players that are there needed to be there. And that's what matters. And I completely agree.
Yeah, I think that's it. Can we move on now?
We can move on.
Because I think the most important thing that I saw, honestly, the most important thing that I saw as a non-medically trained doctor, Although that's an odd way of saying that. Like, I'm a doctor, but I'm not medically trained doctor. I'm a sports radio doctor, like as we all are when we watch internet videos. No, Robert Woods, Caleb Farley. Yes, they were wearing yellow non-contact jerseys, but they are out there. They were doing work on the first 2 possible days that they could have been doing work in recovery from ACLs. To me, they did not look 100%, but they looked way ahead of where I expected them to be for, middle of late May, kind of your first ever 2 days of OTAs in this season. The fact that Robert Woods, he was favoring the left leg clearly when he made in cuts with that leg, but that's not the point. They would when they were running team drills, they were both out there in individual drills, in team drills, doing all the stuff. And I think that was the number one thing for me walking away, Zach, was to see those 2 guys running around out in with the team. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. Does it mean that they're going to be perfect for week 1? I have no clue, but I thought it was really important that they were out there. I thought that was a really good sign.
Well, not to mention Rashad Weaver too, which we'll get into after these 2 specific players. But I look at Robert Woods, and if that's not 100% Robert Woods, then I cannot wait to see what 100% Robert Woods looks like, because I was shocked that, first off, that he was even out there, especially with how this team tends to play their injuries and basically slow play people getting integrated into the offseason activities. And he was out there, looked like he was going full force. Granted, there's a massive Stone Cold Steve Austin-like knee brace on him, but that's okay. He looked utterly fantastic. He looked a lot better than some of the other wide receivers that are fully healthy, going in and out of their cuts. That is a fantastic sign. I after the Bud Dupree situation, which let's be honest here, different body types, different athletic types, different injury, even though they're the same injury, different recovery times and all that kind of stuff. But it's such a breath of fresh air to see a guy coming off a major injury day 1 of OTAs. Again, they're voluntary, out there just going ham, in my opinion, from the clips that I could see. Now, you see more clips, the clips, you see it in real life. So you kind of get the feel. You say, you saw certain things that we probably didn't see in cut tape or pre-edited tape or whatever. But still, for fans, for the locker room, for the team, promising information strictly regarding Robert Woods.
Yeah, no, I think the only time you could tell was if he was running, let's call it, frankly, the AJ Brown route, right? Like the 10-yard dig, and they were doing that drills. And I think I posted it on my Twitter account and it's when he has to use the left leg to plant and explode on an in route, right? Like specifically that leg in that route, you could tell he was clearly kind of favoring it a little bit, but otherwise, every other thing he did, he looked fine. And actually I showed some of those clips to a physical therapist who works for a local company. He's got a degree and he's a professional. And I said, here's the timetable. What do you think? And he goes, looks great. Again, that's totally sort of anecdotal, and it's a guy that just is looking at a short internet video and saying, hey, what do you think? But he goes, 6 months out, 7 months out, to be 8 months out, whatever it is, to be where you are. I think that's a great sign. Caleb Farley was the same. Like, he wasn't, I didn't see him favoring much one side or the other. And he's out there running with individuals, running with team, like doing the whole deal. And they both looked like, at the worst, they are very much on track. And that I think is the most, again, that to me, that was the biggest takeaway of the entire thing, was those 2 guys look like they're on track.
Well, and also when you think about it, Caleb Farley is probably in a total different, I guess you would say, body, probably compared to last year. Because you could see it. He's tall, but it looked very thin and skinny. And now, for all intents and purposes, what you're hearing is that people are saying that he looks thick, he looks big compared to what he was last year. And I think that's going to go a long way. I saw something interesting that nobody's really talking about on the Titans interwebs, the Twitter feed.
You do have your finger on the pulse. I
got the finger on the pulse. Greg Rosenthal puts out his projected starters for the AFC South recently. Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com and Around the NFL podcast. And he had Roger McCreary as the starting cornerback opposite Christian Fulton. And he says in his comments, yeah, Caleb Farley's probably going to be fighting for that spot, but he gave the edge to Roger McCreary. What do you think about that? Because I think that for all intents and purposes, I think it's Roger McCreary kind of in the slot and a backup role outside, and it's definitely Caleb Farley's job to lose right now.
Well, I think that's a great question. McCreary is clearly a healthier player right now today. Like, that's just sort of like a general assessment of the two of them. Caleb Farley is significantly larger. I mean, like, it is startling when they stand next to each other how much bigger and thicker Caleb Farley. Like, Roger McCreary is a pretty slender guy. Now, he's extremely fundamentally sound. He's very quick. Like, even Christian Fulton dwarfs him a little bit. So I think to your assessment on Monday's show about what expectations are for Caleb Farley, which is to kind of come back as Christian Fulton last year, right? Like the next version of that. I think that's the right assessment. I think you want Caleb Farley starting. I think McCreary is a great safety blanket, but I don't think you want to go into week one with Roger McCreary as your starting outside corner. I think he needs some time to physically develop. I think his head and his athleticism will keep him on the field and as a factor, but I think he needs to put some get in the weight room and put some NFL weight on, because
doesn't he really lack the desired length and wingspan that you see from Caleb Farley, which probably matters to be able to start on the outside year one?
I mean, the dude is like it. Like
he plays bigger, obviously, but
I said this last week on Monday's show. Like I've never seen a cornerback last year in camp when Caleb Farley was there and healthy and doing everything. Physically, I've never seen it. That, like, who was the guy for those Seahawks? I'm drawing a blank. That was like 6'4".
Richard Sherman.
No, the other one, it was like 6'4". Like the guy that got called for all the pass interference penalties all the time. The other guy, the tall one that took the huge contract for the Patriots, I think, and then ended up not being good. Either way, he looks that big and that long and that rangy. And we talk about the designated tight end stopper by committee. Don't be surprised if Caleb Farley is in that slot occasionally, in that role, because he's that big. Like he is huge. And if he can get the wheels back, and he looked fine to me on Tuesday, excuse me, I think they've got a really nice set of corners, man. They're very versatile. They've got big ones and little ones and inside ones and outside ones. It's going to be, I really like their secondary right now.
The other guy, Rashad Weaver, there wasn't a lot of clips of him, but there were some out there. And man,
sorry, Donovan says Brendan Browner. That's who I was thinking about.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Rashad Weaver, and on these clips, and a third player in a row that's coming back from a season-ending injury that is looking spry. He's looking strong, and I am very excited. You know, we talked about this a couple of times, that you're looking at him to replace, essentially, for all intents and purposes, from what you gather as evidence of what you've seen him do in the preseason. Their idea is that he's going to replace probably Danico Autry either next year or the year after when his contract is officially up. Is that what you got the sense of?
So I am very excited about Rashad Weaver, just in general. I think what he can do for that defensive front, where they sort of need another body, right? Whether it's outside on third downs, like when they slide Danico Autry out on third downs. Can he play inside like Autry, like a 3-tech on a first and, I don't know. I need to see that part of it, because I think Danico Autry is a rare talent for his ability to move, right? Like right. Up and down and inside and outside, depending on the package and the personnel and the down and distance and situation. But just in general, he is a physical specimen who is like, you know how you see guys that are like that size, and some of them, like this is not meant to be disrespectful to TR Tart. It's not meant to be at all. But TR Tart is a very different body shape than Rashad Weaver. Like, one of them is significantly leaner. Right. And sometimes you want a Vince Wilfork shaped guy in the middle to be that nose guard that can just clog up two gaps and play both sides of a center. That's not how Weaver is built. This is he's built more like Bud Dupree, frankly, but like bigger. He's thicker. I'm very excited to see what they can do with him. And if that means inside on pass rush downs, outside on rushing downs, can he be the backup for Landry and Dupree and Autry? Like, that's where you get excited about him, right? Is that he could he could do all these different things.
I mean, you saw it in preseason last year. He was being moved around everywhere. And I think that was the whole plan with getting a guy like Rashad Weaver, who is just so fundamentally and technically sound. I mean, you can make an argument that out of the 2020 or 2021 class that he is the most fundamentally and sound edge rusher, because that's what he was classified in the class of last year. That's, to me, was one of the big takeaways. He's not fast, he's not explosive, but he does everything right. You can get in if you can do the hand placements, the moves, the techniques, you make up for a lot of that speed by being able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the question is going to be how many different moves does he have? Like because he's not like Landry. What do we talk about with Landry? Right, just the speed rush. But he's like so good at that the other ones have developed alongside of it. Like Weaver's going to have to be more technically sound and more versatile. Like he's going to need a rip, he's going to need a bull rush, he's going to need the swim. He's going to have to learn how to do all that stuff. But he should be capable of all of it.
He's been working with Dr. Pass Rush for about 2 seasons now.
There's very few, we did our whole second year expectation thing for all those players. Go back and check out Monday's episode. But there's very few guys that are first or second year players that I'm more excited to see than what he looks like when they actually get the pads going in actual camp.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the progression of Rashad Weaver.
Yeah, should be a ton of fun. All right, where are we going next? What else do you want to know?
All right. What's next for Tannehill and Willis? Because on Monday, Mintergate was slammed, or Tuesday, Mintergate was slammed shut. And once again,
oh God,
we have video evidence of me being right and telling everybody the difference between a mentor, between a leader, and why you shouldn't freak out and why Tannehill was right. And it's gone. It's over. So what's next for Tannehill and Willis and their relationship for the rest of the summer?
I don't really know what to tell you here, Zach. Like, I didn't think that was a big story. I think you want everything we think that Malik Willis needs to work on. We've seen that at both rookie camp and now in OTA. Like, we know that he's working under center. We know that he's going to want to work on play action, his footwork. I think actually, and this was interesting, and I think more than just a few of us were talking about this on Tuesday, and that is even just from rookie camp to Tuesday, there were some subtle tweaks with his footwork. Like the leg didn't kick out as wide. Like you could tell that they were working on the throwing motion. So the fact that Ryan Tannehill is now, like when you go into individual drills in a rookie camp, like Malik Willis is taking the first rep with everybody, right? Like it's him and Quentin Dormady. Now he's taking the third rep and he is watching a lot every single time because that's the order they're going to go. They're going to go Tannehill, Woodside, Willis on everything. And that's what they should do. And so watching Tannehill, that's the mentorship. Like you have a coach to mentor you. His name is the quarterback coach. You've also got a passing game coordinator and an offensive coordinator, all of whom are going to work with him. And oh, by the way, now you get to watch Ryan Tannehill literally up close and personal 5 feet away while he runs every single drill.
Well, and then I guess Tannehill had all the quarterbacks practicing no-look passes, which I thought was pretty interesting and stuff. A couple of things I noticed was his rollouts aren't as smooth as I thought they would be, but he's also handing off, catching a rollout, and then trying to throw a rollout. Like, that didn't look that smooth, but I think that's just the makeup of probably not ever doing that drill for like 4 or 5 years.
He is going to have to refine anything to his left. Anything to his non-throwing arm, he is going to have to refine everything. Arm slot, footwork, motion. He's going to need a lot of reps to go that direction with the ball. The other direction, he's much more comfortable. He's much more natural. The arm slot stays up. Like he's pretty good that way. But when they go when they go to the left, that's when it's just obvious he hasn't done that a lot. And so I think, but again, like the kid likes to work. He's clearly paying attention. When they ask him to do a rep again, he's on top of it and he's jumping on it. Like again, we're talking about a couple days of practice here, so it's not a whole lot. I'm just glad that the whole stupid mentor thing is behind us. It's just so stupid.
Well, I do want to ask you if there's any truth to a certain rumor. Now, Tannehill was obviously like 5 to 10 minutes late to his part of the press conference. Is it true that he was stuffing Malik Willis into a locker? And that's what
cannot confirm or deny that report, Zach.
Gotcha. Well, let's move off this because I mean I just wanted to say that I was right because
you are right.
Can't ever pass that opportunity up.
Rate, review, subscribe, turn on your
Always.
notifications because Zach is right.
Always right. But I think we kind of both agree, and we've hinted at this before throughout the show, previous episodes. But the pass catching depth is sort of the best it's ever been, and I think it continually shows up. And there's going to be different layers to this topic because we need to talk about the disrespect of of Nick Westbrook-Akine, the overhypeness of Des Fitzpatrick, and we need to talk about Kyle Phillips, in my opinion. But there's so much to talk about here, and I think what we should really focus on, just real quick, the presence of Austin Hooper as that soft-handed security blanket veteran that knows everything that you're supposed to do as a vet, getting time with Tannehill, and it obviously already paying off.
So Donovan asks, what do you guys think of Kyle Phillips? That's coming. That's coming soon. And by the way, for those of you who need to know how to spell Kyle Phillips' name, there is one L in Phillips.
It's going to be, listen, I'm never going to tell anybody or try to correct anybody on that from this point on. He may have to legally change his name.
No, and I'm not actually, Donovan, we love you, man.
No, yeah.
I'm not actually correcting you. I'm just stating it's going to be one of those things that's going to turn into like an internet. You know how like no one could say Mariota's name correctly for a while? Like everyone's going to misspell Kyle Phillips' name.
I've seen a few people already give up, say that whatever my phone corrects it to is whatever it's going to be.
All right, so Austin Hooper, I think it is. I'm not even sure I need more than this. They have a bona fide professional adult starting number 1 tight end. Full stop.
Whoa, breaking news. Jeff Swaim, not an adult.
It's not what I meant. Don't twist you're taking my words out of context, Zach. No, I just think that there's being at camp last year, like Anthony Ferguson's a nice player. Like all of them have their nice little skills. This is a bona fide number 1 starting tight end in the NFL. That's it.
And isn't that who you want your younger guys to learn from? I feel like right now you're such a young team in the pass catching room, pretty much the whole way through. I mean, Nick Westbrook-Akine is your most tenured Titans pass catcher, and Robert Woods is your most tenured wide receiver, and Austin Hooper is your most tenured vet tight end. Now you're teaching Tommy Hudson. You're teaching Chico Kwanku. Briley Moore, who's coming back from injury, which was kind of lost in the shuffle. He was trending last year really well. Don't know if he's really making a name for himself in this because he's probably still a yellow practice jersey. But then you got Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, Des Fitzpatrick, Racey McMath, all being able to learn from, I think, the experience of Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's never really given up, who's plugged away.
Total professional, by the way.
And the consummate professional that should be beloved by Titans fans for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, why
and
he does
Robert
not get
Woods is the same thing.
Why he does not get more just general conversation. I know we had like the whole Rex Road thing where we joked about like he's beloved inside the like he's obviously liked inside the building because he's made it through every round of everything.
Right.
Whether it's a trade or a cut or a this or that, like he is always there. And when they needed someone, when they had no Jones and no Brown, Westbrook-Akine was the guy that got the starts last year. So I think
Tannehill's comfortable for him. I don't understand how for the last 10 years, it feels like the running joke for Titans fans, or basically from the media side looking at Titans fans, is how this fan base clamors for loser undrafted free agent wide receivers over and over that constantly fail. And now you have a winning undrafted free agent wide receiver and they hate him. They hate NWI because but they're still in love with Mason Kinsey. People think Mason Kinsey is going to beat out Kyle Phillips, which you're not watching the same tape I am, but Kyle Phillips is exponentially quicker and faster than Mason Kinsey on the field from what I've seen.
Here's we can take each of these things like kind of quickly and individually, but I'll just say on the whole and we've discussed this on the show before, they are better at tight end 1. They are better at tight end 2. They're better at wide receiver 2. They're better at wide receiver 3. They're better at wide receiver 4. They're better at wide receiver 5. They're better at wide receiver 6. Outside of A.J. Brown and wide receiver 1, which, I mean, right now, you have to give it to Robert Woods, but like, could it be Treylon Burks? That's the whole point of drafting him in the top 20. They're better at every single position in that room.
And listen, that matters because Warren Sharp just put out an article right before we went on air talking about how the production from number one wide receivers has fallen off over the years, progressively every year, because teams are going to put more wide receivers on the field. So this actually could be a better offense than last year, maybe even 2020 and 2019, because they have more competent pass catchers. I just want people to respect Nick Westbrook-Akine. He's not an all-star, all-pro, Pro Bowler kind of guy, but he's that guy that's going to plug away for the team, give you his all every time he's on the field, and he has earned the trust of the quarterback, which is so important. Yes, and he's reliable.
I think all that's true. Just to give you an example, last year at camp, like the sort of running argument with a lot of the media members where we all sort of like pick sides, right?
Right.
Was like wide receiver 3, 4, and 5. And I was wrong. I thought Josh Reynolds would be a serviceable number 3. I thought he did a fine job.
I would love to have a 30 for 30 on that, because I just am so curious why he goes to Detroit and does better. What happened here? I just don't know.
So I don't think he was a fit, and I think he was hurt for most of camp. But what I was going to say is that it was like we all had to pick a team, and like half of us were Chester Rogers and half of us were Marcus Johnson. And like that was the ongoing debate. And like Chester Rogers would make a play, and I'd look over at somebody, I'd be like, look, there's number 80 making a play. And then Marcus Johnson would make a play, and they'd go, there's my guy, Marcus Johnson. Like it was almost like we had to pick sides. Marcus Johnson and Chester Rogers would not even be in the conversation with this depth chart. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here, is that when you have Treylon Burks and Robert Woods, and then you go down the list, I think Nick Westbrook-Akine is better than he was last year. Kyle Phillips, I think, is better than Chester Rogers or Marcus Johnson. You know, even Reggie Roberson is an opportunity to make the team. If you want me to address Des Fitzpatrick really quickly, I can. I am not buying this hype that people are talking about. I haven't seen a lot of hype for him, frankly. But here's what I'll tell you I saw. He is a better-looking football player. He is leaner. He runs the drills better. He does everything better. And that's what you should expect out of a second-year player. He also made a really impressive catch over the middle in traffic, using his physicality to make a very difficult, like, diving catch. Now, I think it was Amani Hooker that was there, and I think Amani Hooker would have destroyed one of his knees if it would have been a real game. But it was still a very tough play and a nice play to see him make. Kyle Phillips also took I want to say it was like a 6 or 7 yard slant route, and he took it. Not only did he score, there was nobody within 10 yards of him. Like he took it and just he was gone, like right up the seam, right up the middle, and nobody was within 10 yards of him. And
I don't understand this Mason Kinsey love. Haven't really understood it for about a year and a half now. I mean, right now PK and Teresa are trying to tell this Titans Rossi YouTuber guy currently that do not worry about Mason Kinsey. There was 10 wide receivers that they played last year, not one of them, and then Mason Kinsey only got called up for like 4 or 5 snaps. So he's not going to make this team, where you're right, it's exponentially better. But you remember Trey McBride, Deontay Burnett, Brian Ely, Michael Preston was one. It just goes, it's just a long line of fan favorite UDFAs, and we got one. The Titans got one, and nobody likes him except for like a few select people. And I feel so bad for him, but he is the consummate professional.
He's a nice player.
I don't understand the disrespect. We need to have more NWI love shown out there.
Okay.
The Des Fitzpatrick stuff that I saw, that they released all these videos or whatever showing Des Fitzpatrick. A lot of those balls were not very secure when he caught him. Now he caught him, and he only dropped one from all reports that I've seen.
I saw one that he dropped, and the good thing was the body language afterward.
That's
there was he picked it up and went right back in line and kept working, which is what you want.
It would be nice if Des Fitzpatrick carved out a nice role for himself. I am to the point now, I was really big on thinking that the Titans really needed to get a free agent wide receiver once June 1st hits, because I think that's what they're waiting for, is June 1st. I'm not convinced that they are going to be getting a wide receiver in free agency unless someone goes down with injury. Where's your temperature at that right now?
I still think they could use another veteran piece, but after seeing them now a couple of times, I do think that they're probably more comfortable with their room than people think. I think a lot of it is, how do they project Des Fitzpatrick, Kyle Phillips, like the bottom 3? Like Racey McMath, is he a wide receiver or just a special teamer? Is he a scout team player? I think right now they feel pretty comfortable with Nick Westbrook-Akine and Kyle Phillips as their 3 and 4, with working in Des Fitzpatrick as a backup. Like, unless I'm missing somebody, Reggie Roberson dropped a pass or two, and Vrabel had some funny one-liners for him during practice. But I think they've got a pretty good room, especially, and this is what I found, like Chigakonka, we've talked about the athleticism. They are going to be extremely creative. They are going to be able to be extremely creative with him, because where they're going to line him up, what they're doing with him, how they can move him around, the running game, the passing game, like they are going to do a lot of things with him. And it is going to be really fun to see how they work him in with Hooper and with these receivers. He is a really interesting piece that they're going to move him all over the place and have him do a lot of different things. And that's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Just real quick, under this thing, Donovan puts out a question right here. Do you guys expect Racey McMath to compete for playing time? I think yes, he will compete through the offseason, but will he get ample playing time? I'm hesitant to say yes.
Yeah, I don't think he plays a lot at wide receiver. If he's on the team, it's because he's so good in special teams, and they just want to have him as like a 7th wide receiver, which very rarely do you carry. I don't see him playing a lot, man, honestly. Like, I mean, I'm barring injuries. Because, again, the tight end room is so much different this year that I think they're going to do, and Donovan mentions this, I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. I would love to see a lot of 12 personnel out of this team. I think they've got the right personnel to do it.
Hey, you ready to talk about some SEC football?
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
So Athlon Sports comes out with their college football top 25. You said that it is in a magazine. I saw that you even did a podcast talking about and breaking down the top 25.
I did. I'm fine promoting all the other shows, right?
Yeah,
Cover 2 pod. We've been doing the Cover 2 podcast since 2014. Myself, Stephen Lassen, he's amazing, man. And the magazines are on sale right now, so go order your magazine, pick whatever cover you want. Athlonsports.com is the best place to do that. They'll be on newsstands in a couple of weeks. But our top 25 came out, and it is sort of symbolic, Zach. Like, if you're a college football junkie like I am, it's sort of symbolic that it's the start of like the summer. It's the start of the talking season. It's the start of preseason rankings, and people are about to go on vacation, so you need a magazine to go on vacation, all that good stuff. Number 1, Alabama, and I'll just do the SEC. I'll do the top 4, and then we'll dive into some of the other teams. Number 1, Bama. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, Clemson. Number 5, A&M. And then you got to drop all the way down to number 18, the Tennessee Volunteers. Kentucky at 21 in the SEC. Arkansas at 22 in the SEC. That means LSU, Florida, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. None of them are ranked, all of which could be pretty good, minus Auburn. And so there's a lot to discuss. It's just a fun time. Like, we just love when we put out we're very proud of the magazine, and we obviously appreciate everybody's support that goes and buys one, because, pay for good journalism. So
now, do you think those are the appropriate rankings of SEC teams? Do you think anybody's too high, too low?
Well, let's start with Bama, Georgia, because I think here's what I'd say. And Ohio State fans hate it for you, but if I saw Bama or Georgia in a playoff game, I'm not picking against them, period. I think they're the best 2 teams in college football. I think they're gonna play again in the SEC championship game. I think they're gonna play again in the playoff for the national title, and I think we're gonna get like 4 matchups between these 2 teams in 2 years. And I'm sure everyone else hates that. I don't give a shit, because I think it's great football when they play together. It's great theater. It's 2 great teams, great coaches, backstories, drama, talent. I think they're both the best 2. And if Ohio State's playing Georgia in a playoff, I'm taking Georgia. If Ohio State's playing Bama in a playoff game, I'm taking Bama. So I think they're probably the best 2 teams in college football again.
I disagree. I disagree. And this is where the hot take comes in for me. I get the sense, and it's just a feeling, in my gut, that Georgia's going to be disappointing this year. And I think that Georgia's not even going to win their division. That's
no, come on. They're not going to win the East?
I have this feeling in my bones that they have lost 15, an NFL draft record, 15 picks to the draft. And I think they have no key incoming transfers, only 3 returning starters on defense. I think Stetson Bennett isn't that great, while all the other quarterbacks in the SEC are probably going to take another step up. Because we talked about this a few episodes ago, talking about the quarterbacks in the SEC and how good they are and how most of them are going to take a jump. I really like UT's chances, and we'll talk about it here in a few, but I'm not convinced that Georgia is as good as what everybody wants to say that they are. Now, they may be great, but I just don't think that they are going to be the Georgia that you saw last year.
So I don't gamble a lot. Not a big gambler. I enjoy it during the football season, but I don't gamble a lot. Normally what I do is I wait for people in my life to say really stupid shit. And then I say,
that point in your life.
Then I say, would you want to bet? What would you like to put down on Georgia winning the division?
Well, I already owe you a bottle of bourbon, which I got to remember to get. You got to remind me to get that, or whiskey, or whatever you prefer.
I just want to be able to say that I'm right. I actually don't care about the result. I just want to be right.
You know, how about this? I will write a nice, lengthy ode to Braden if you are right, talking about how right you were.
First of all, I don't know if anybody wants that. Not even me. I don't know if I want that.
I'm a very good hyperbolic writer, so I think it would make.
No, you're wonderful. I just I don't know how many people would enjoy that. I'll take 2 bottles of bourbon. That's fine. Here's the problem: they have the number 1 overall pick next year, probably in Jalen Carter. They have a quarterback who was top 5 in efficiency.
Whoa! The number 1 overall pick in Jalen Carter. You're not going to go with one of the quarterbacks?
I don't think Bryce Young's going to go number 1.
Well, I mean, C.J. Stroud is out there.
I think Stroud will be ahead of Young. I think Will Anderson could be the number 1 pick too.
Yeah.
At Alabama. The point is they have another flesh-eating monster defensive lineman that's going to be number 1, who does not count as a returning starter. They got 5 stars stacked on top of 5 stars. They have the best. How about this? You want hyperbolic? They have the best tight end room in the history of college football. In the history of college football.
Who gives a shit about tight ends? What is this, 1920 football? Who gives a shit about tight ends?
Did you watch the national championship game? Did you watch it? Alabama fan who got his ass spanked by Brock Bowers? Did you watch the game?
Listen, that ain't going to happen again. You ain't going to catch lightning in a bottle twice. And I just don't think...
I'm picking Bama.
I don't believe in Stetson Bennett.
I'm picking Bama.
And I think that quarterback play is going to be super important in the SEC this year, because I expect certain teams to make the jump, especially in their specific part of the division.
All right. Do we want to address Tennessee, or do you want to go A&M next? What do you want to do?
Let's go A&M.
Okay, because A&M's, what's interesting about this, before we get to Tennessee, because you're gonna have to explain to people why you think Tennessee is going to win the division. So just a second on that. I need to get my.
I don't know if I'm really sold that Tennessee's going to win the division, but I think they have the best shot. But we'll get there.
That's fair. That's fair. So the top 3 teams are very obvious. There is no discussion or debate that I've had with anybody, media, coach, administrator, fan, nobody that disagrees with Bama, Georgia, Ohio State top 3. The problem we had at the magazine is that 4 through about 15 is all the same. And it's impossible to really decide who's the 4th best team. Now, I think A&M might be the 4th best team in America, but they have to play in Tuscaloosa on October 8th, and then they have to play everyone else on their schedule. And I don't know if they can get through that schedule at 11-1, and then 3 teams from the SEC make it in. I think they're good enough if they get quarterback play, and they have a much better quarterback room this year than they did last year. So I don't know who's 4. We put Clemson at 4 as the ACC champ. I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor or Oklahoma's at 4. If Utah, Oregon, or USC, the Pac-12 champ, is at 4. If Michigan gets in again as a second-place team, 11-1, the way Bama did in 2017, I'd have no clue who's going to be at number 4. And I think A&M has as good a chance as anybody, but they're going to have to be perfect, and they have yet to show us. This is what makes Jimbo Fisher's rant so funny to me, Zach. He has yet to show us that they can be there and be perfect and get through it all. The closest they came was 2 years ago, and they got beat by 4 touchdowns by Alabama. And they still finished number 5 in the nation. But I think they're very, very, very good. Can they be perfect to make the playoff? I don't know. So
yeah, I think the issue is going to be. I agree with you guys over at the magazine talking about 4 through 15 is pretty much just a crapshoot. They're all the same. Because I look at these teams and I was scrolling through it, I could make a case for USC. They got that Biletnikoff winner. They got Caleb Williams. They get all these guys coming in.
They can't get a stop. They have no defense.
Yeah, that would be the key right there. But then you think about Clemson and you think about their horrible quarterback situation. They don't really have one. The best their defense, I think, was a big letdown last year, in my opinion, when I'm watching film of Kenny Pickett and other players, the quarterbacks that played against Clemson, Sam Howell. They weren't that great last year on defense. So do they rebound back?
Their defense is going to be disgusting. They could have 4 first-round picks on their defensive line.
I think Texas A&M can sneak in, but they have to get out of their own way. And I think that even on Monday, I believe it was, Jimbo Fisher made an even bigger deal about media not reading or not researching, which I don't even think they legally can research the stuff that he's asking them to research.
Yeah, name, image, and likeness, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't actually figure out that those contracts are
which
private.
Then makes me question him. If he doesn't know that, does he really know the rules of NIL? Did they really follow the guidelines of whatever is there on NIL? So that's a whole nother conspiracy theory I just have.
Well, if you notice every time he talks, he's like, I don't know anything about it. We followed every single rule. Like, wait a second, Jimbo, which one is it then?
Right.
Like, did you follow every single rule, or do you not know anything about it? Which one is it?
So my thing is that I think he is now, with that press conference, the previous press conference that he didn't even really have to do. I think that he's gonna be under so much scrutiny and pressure to win, because if he doesn't win every game, you're gonna have people saying, well, asking him about this. And I think that little bit of pressure, can he perform with all eyes on Texas A&M?
Yep.
And I think the mental aspect of this whole thing is going to be what's going to be interesting to watch, because there's nothing that can break up a locker room than the press conferences that you see Jimbo Fisher doing, stuff coming out, because eventually something's going to come out, right? Something's going to be found and discovered.
But here's the thing. He hasn't done anything wrong. That's what makes it so weird that he did the whole thing that he did. Like, it doesn't, we talked about this on Monday. It's like, you didn't do anything wrong, dude. Like, you're allowed to use name, image, and likeness money for players. Like, that's how it's not illegal. It's not against the rules. And here's the thing. I think Texas A&M is, and this will lead into one of our next topics, which is sort of like, are the Tennessee Volunteers the best of the rest in the SEC? And I think Texas A&M is the 4th best roster in America.
Wow.
Can they go through their very difficult schedule with an unproven quarterback and do it perfectly, knowing that you've got a loss to Alabama probably coming? That's the problem. I don't like, Arkansas is good. Ole Miss is good. Mississippi State is good. LSU is going to be better. You lost to 3 of those teams. You lost to all 4 of those teams last year. So to me, they have to be perfect, and I don't think they can, even though I do believe that they have the 4th best roster in America.
Yeah, I look at it, and you say that they can't go 8-4, in my opinion, and be considered anything other than pretenders from here on in until they show us, right? Yep. It's kind of like Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs. They got to prove it, and this is their best chance to prove it. And if they don't prove it, then really that $30 million that they are supposedly spending just was flushed down the drain. Because
I think next year's the year. I think 2023 is the year where because Bryce Young will be gone, Will Anderson's going to go, Alabama will be quote unquote rebuilding, whatever the hell that means these days. And all those recruiting classes that Jimbo's had will now be upperclassmen and sophomores. I think next year's the year. I think we're 1 year ahead of schedule with A&M. I think they're 1 year behind. Next year's the year for A&M. So,
well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be rooting against them every bit of the way. But a team that surprisingly you may not think that I would be rooting for. I'm here for Youth Pastor Josh. That's what I'm calling him, Coach Josh.
Oh, Youth Pastor Josh?
Yeah, I Coach Josh. I always call him Coach Josh. I'm going to go first name because I think he looks like a Coach Josh.
What about Coach Dad?
Coach Dad. I mean, that gets into like the Lawan thing, Daddy Dad.
Yeah, that's a Titans thing. You guys do that so fast.
No, don't say you. Dude, please do not say you.
Twitter bros do that.
Yeah.
I see when I think of Josh Heupel, I think of like just a regular old dad. Like
that's why I think Coach Josh works, because when you're playing T-ball and stuff, I'm sure they call you Coach Braden or something like that. They instead of calling you Coach Ball.
That's true. That's true. They do. They just say coach.
Yeah. Well, I think kids go first name over last name when you're a little kid.
Okay, let me ask you this. Sidebar. Let me ask you this. So you don't have kids, so I don't. Maybe if my children called you Mr. Zach, how would you feel?
I would say you could just call me Zach.
Okay, I'm with you. So I cannot stand Mr. or Miss first name. It's a Southern thing. I don't get it. It's wildly unprofessional in an adult setting. Why do we teach our children in the South to say Miss so-and-so, Mr. so-and-so? Like Mr. Braden, I'd be like, no, you can call me Braden or Mr. Gall. Those are the two things. I prefer Braden. Like that's my actual name. Go figure. So what about Mr. Josh? Because
I just like Coach Josh. Just rolls off the tongue. So anyway.
I cannot stand Mr. or Miss first name. I don't know why, but it makes my skin crawl.
Oh, I'm with you. I think it's weird.
Okay,
but for the first time, I don't think that the Tennessee Volunteers are overhyped. This is for the first time in a very long time. You're talking about 8 offensive starters returning, 6 defensive starters returning, a couple of key incoming transfers, another year in the Coach Josh offense, another year in the defense there for the new scheme. I think a year 2 jump is in the cards, a major year 2 jump.
Wow.
And I think that Tennessee is going to show a lot of people that Coach Josh is the guy. He's going to live up to the hype. And this team is ready to make its way back into SEC prominence.
So when was the last time Tennessee did not disappoint? Football.
Probably 98.
2001.
Maybe, yeah.
2007. We ranked them at Athlon Sports at number 18 in the nation, the 4th best team in the SEC. So number 1, let's just take a moment to acknowledge how far they came from Jeremy Pruitt to preseason top 20 and number 4 in the SEC, ahead of Florida, ahead of LSU, ahead of Auburn, ahead of Kentucky, ahead of Arkansas, ahead of everyone else. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin ahead of them. So that means 2 things. They're going to have to handle expectations this year. This summer, everyone's going to be talking about them, and Tennessee does not do that very well. Now, this is a new regime. This is Coach Josh.
Coach Josh. He's going to get the youths ready.
Here's why I like what you're saying, and then I'll play devil's advocate, because devil's advocate to me is it's Tennessee. The reason I like what you're saying on the surface is that I think the offense it has a high floor. The offense is going to score 35 points almost at minimum every single week, with the exception of Bama and Georgia games. They're going to score a lot of points. We know what they are. Hendon Hooker is established. The offensive scheme is established. The offensive line is solid. I like the pieces around Hendon Hooker, Tillman, and company. I think they're going to be good. So I think offensively they are going to be very good. I have no idea if they're going to be able to get key stops. That's going to be the problem. Defensively, I still have lots of questions. And this sort of feeds into our next topic, which is this is the best I have seen the SEC middle class ever. And that is why I think A&M has a loss or 2. It's why I think when you look at, Florida and LSU changing coaches, like you look at the middle of this conference, Tennessee, Kentucky, LSU, Florida, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Like that is 7 or 8 really good teams that are all sort of about the same, and they're all going to beat each other up. And that's my concern for all of them is can you get through a schedule full of like much better than you think games and teams and do it without making mistakes? Tennessee doesn't do that well. Like they don't like being perfect and overachieving. That's not what Tennessee does well when they have expectations. So
yeah, I agree. I think this is probably the strongest. There's a big wide, and for those that are going to listen to this on the podcast, I got my hands out wide. There's just a bunch of teams right here in that middle tier that are going to beat each other up pretty much. And I think basically you can make a it's like Missouri and Vanderbilt and maybe South Carolina are on the outside looking in, while Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama are looking down.
That's exactly right.
I think that when you talk about that, someone from this pack has to prove and get their team to that next level. And I believe in Coach Josh. And I cannot believe I'm saying that, by the way.
So
this is the nicest and probably the only time on record that I will be to UT Volunteer football.
Okay.
So everybody needs to embrace it and enjoy it, because this will be the last time it ever happens.
So Tennessee's argument is the offense. They probably have arguably one of the best offenses of those groups of teams, right? Florida and LSU have new coaches, but they probably have better rosters because they've recruited really well over the last couple of years. I think Mississippi State has the best passing offense. I think Arkansas might have the best quarterback. Stoney asked about Hendon Hooker, and I think Hendon Hooker is very, very underrated nationally.
31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions last year.
Extremely efficient.
If he does that and they stack wins, you will have him in the Heisman conversation, but it's going to be really hard for him to supplant someone like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, or even one of those defenders without Tennessee going undefeated. Tennessee would have to go undefeated at that point.
Yes. Now, Tennessee also benefits because they're in the East, and the East is certainly much easier this year than the West, but Arkansas' schedule is very favorable. Mississippi State returns more players than any team in America, 17 returning starters, including Will Rogers, who threw for like 4,600 yards last year. And I love Mississippi State this year. I think Ole Miss is going to reload, but I think they're probably taking a step back. Kentucky's still got a first-round quarterback and Will Levis and a new coordinator and a lot of culture and identity. It is so interesting that everyone is happy about their team. It's just so interesting.
Well, almost everybody.
Except for Auburn. Auburn doesn't count. Auburn doesn't count. But everybody's happy. Like Tennessee fans, they're excited about this team. Preseason top 20. Kentucky fans, preseason top 25. Arkansas, preseason top 25. LSU and Florida have new coaches to be excited about. There is so much to be excited about with this league, and that doesn't even include the top 3 teams that are all competing for top 5 national championship status. So there's a reason Greg Sankey is walking around right now with his chest puffed out, sort of scaring everybody into, and I don't know if you saw this, he said we could just do an SEC only playoff.
Oh, there you go. It would be high ratings. I mean, wouldn't it be even maybe higher ratings than any of the previous college football playoffs?
I mean, maybe. I don't think it's good for the game. I don't want to see it. But if you add Texas and Oklahoma, and then you go get like Clemson and North Carolina and USC, and you bring them all into a 20-team SEC, and they go, yeah, we're just going to play our own tournament. See you later.
Yeah.
That TV contract will be pretty big. But there's a reason the SEC fans are so puffed up right now. So,
well, do you want to get to your rant about you said you had a rant about this weekend?
Oh yeah, not a football show. We like to wrap up every now and then on the show with not a football show. By the way, Kingston Group, buildkg.com, our title sponsor, Broadway Sports Media, Football and Other F Words, all the other shows from the 440 Sports Network. Go to the YouTube page and please support us by clicking all the buttons, turning the notifications on, and all that great stuff. I think I could argue that my 2 favorite sporting events that I've ever been to, and a lot of them are tied to this weekend, so that's why I'm bringing this up. The Indianapolis 500 and the College World Series. Those are my 2 favorite sporting events that I've ever been to. I've been to the Titans Super Bowl. I've been to the Final Four. I've been to college football playoff games. I've been to the Masters, which would probably be number 3. I've been to NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Final. I've been to all this stuff. I've been very lucky. The Indianapolis 500 this weekend on Memorial Day is my favorite event to ever go to.
That is a hot take, because I've been to Talladega and I could not stand anything about Talladega.
Well, these people all have their teeth. So there's that.
How many of them have their shirts on though?
It's a valid question. There's a little it's not like, I know you like F1.
Yes.
So imagine taking like the really, really redneck out of Talladega, and inserting it with like F1 European like models, right? That's
what Indy 500 is. Are you sure? I feel like you're overselling it.
I'm saying it's a middle ground between Talladega and Monaco. Okay. Yeah. So if Monaco's over here and you're on a yacht with like nothing but like Parisian models, and over here you're Talladega and you're on literally a school bus with like people with no teeth. And again, this is pretty generalized here, so sorry. But like the middle ground between those 2 things is the Indianapolis 500 in the middle of a great city that loves the event. You can bring a cooler in, So you can bring all your own food, all your own beer, all your own liquor, bring whatever you want in. You don't have to spend a penny to buy anything while you're there. And when you watch rocket ships go past you at 230 miles an hour, you feel like a kid again. And it is, I've been to 9 of them. It is my favorite sporting event to go to. I absolutely love it. I just give it a chance over the weekend. Just give it a chance and watch it and enjoy the pageantry, the celebration of our troops, like everything that goes into it. It is awesome. I love it. It is my number 1 favorite sporting event. Hot take.
That is quite the hot take, because I could not imagine, of all the sporting events that you have, that would be the one.
But you're a big F1 guy, so you understand like finely tuned rocket ships competing for.
Yeah, but there's just no. I feel like where's the drama in NASCAR? Maybe I just don't follow.
This is not NASCAR. This is not NASCAR.
Or whatever it is. I mean, I just don't feel the drama. Where's the drama?
You can't, just because there wasn't a Netflix documentary about it.
It helps. Listen, I need to be invested in this and the drama. That's why I love the NFL.
So the on track drama where you can't like touch, like NASCAR's a different sport. Like you can Rubbins racing, like NASCAR's a whole different sport. But IndyCar is way closer to F1, and this is people all over the world, 350,000 people in attendance. Like it is just an extraordinary event. So just try it out, and if you don't like it, you can report back on Tuesday's episode. You can report back and tell me what you thought. But
I'm not going to go. What are you talking about?
I know, but just give it a chance on TV.
I've watched it on TV.
Okay.
I have a funny story that I cannot say, but there was someone close to me that asked, where does the Indy 500 take place? So, but I did watch the Indy 500. I think it was 2 Memorial Days ago, or 2 Memorial Day years ago.
So Newgarden, Nashville native. He's a champion in the series. Has never won that race. Always looking for him to do well. So I just think it's great. You're right. It's way more fun to go to than it is to watch on TV. Gotcha. I'll give you that. All right. So that about does it for us this week. We'll talk to you guys again on Tuesday. Special thanks to the Kingston Group. Ideally, we're back in our Cast Collective studio when security gets upgraded. All the different things that they're working on there at the studio. You can follow him at FWordsPod. You can follow me at Braden Gall, at 440 Sports on the YouTubes and the Twitters and all that great stuff. We really appreciate all your support. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday. This has been a football show.
A great football show, just for all you listeners.